Hi, this is Scott Pop here for Mobility Minute, but today we're going to talk about a different topic. This is my friend Mike Davis, Dr. Mike Davis, who's a PhD in biochemistry and a researcher. The topic is called epigenetics and is a fascinating topic, one that is just starting to get out into the research world with scientists. And why don't you just briefly explain what epigenetics is?
Sure, Scott. Well, I was originally trained as a plant biochemist. One of the things we have learned recently in studying plants is that when you provide plants with the exactly proper nutritional ingredients in their soil and water, the right minerals, the other nutrients the plant needs, you can optimize their production of food, and you can also optimize their ability to ward off both the stress of animal predators and the stress of what's called abiotic stress, which are things like wind, heat, cold. Literally, there are hundreds of genes that are affected by the nutritional state of the plants. The other thing that has been shown in animal studies is that, in fact, animals are greatly affected by what they're fed and the environment they're put into. For example, if you eat beef from a cow that has only lived inside a feedlot, you get a completely different set of omega fatty acids than you get if they are raised out on a pasture land and in field, and it's much healthier for you to eat the pasture-fed beef than the one for the cow that always spent its entire life in the feedlot. Now, of course, when we get up to humans, this gets even more interesting and complicated. Let's go back to the example of you feel good. You're going to buy the organic grass-fed beef. And then you go look at the price, and oh my God, it's twice as expensive as the cheap beef. And now you're stressing out about, oh, should I get the good beef or should I save the money? And in human beings, it turns out the thought patterns have immense effects on all the other systems in the body. They not only change how your brain is wired, they affect your fight or flight response. And in the lab, we've shown that in animal studies that a single gene, we used to teach one gene equal one protein. We now have examples that we've sort of manipulated in the lab showing that depending on environmental factors, a single gene can have up to 30,000 different variants. Literally, for human beings, everything that is in your environment, the words you read, the TV you listen to, the music you listen to, your own self-talk will all affect the expression of your genes, thus the phrase epigenetics. And this effect is so powerful that can even be passed on through different generations. They've shown that if the parents are involved in a famine, or the grandparents, the generations past that for up to 4 generations can be more susceptible to getting obesity and diabetes, because the signal, oh, food is always at a premium, has been passed on through this epigenetic effect.
So what you're really saying is that our thoughts actually change the expression of our DNA, and our environment and how we interact with our environment and our actions, our socioeconomic patterns, everything is playing out through our DNA and actually its expression. So really what you're saying is how we think, we eat, we feel, we interact. If we are what we think, or we become our interactions. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and this has sort of been known historically. For example, Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile, for thousands of years that people said you couldn't run a mile in under 4 minutes. And then in the 1950s, Roger Bannister finally broke the 4-minute barrier. And now literally people in high school, tens of thousands of people have done the mile in less than 4 minutes. I think the current record is like 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Because it was a mental barrier. Nobody thought you could move that fast, so they didn't. And once he proved you could, then everyone started changing their thinking.
So this really means that what you're saying is everything that we do should have a purpose, and we should tend to live intentionally with how we eat, how we interact, because it all affects not only our DNA, but possibly generations down the line.
Oh yeah, and the people around us, of course. In other words, if you're interacting with somebody and you're very negative towards them, they're going to respond that way. And you could be having terrible effects on, say, your offspring that you don't intend. But it's possibly you're simply repeating what was said to you when you were being born. This is the generational effect that is expressed to epigenetics, but has been well known. And the other thing I would say is that you've done a lot of things, you and your family, with weight loss. And weight loss is, as your wife said, mainly a thought game. And the advice I give people who ask me about this is, don't eat anything from a box in front of a box, because really you should be eating more natural foods, and try not to be distracted by something on whatever blue screen device you're addicted to, TV, iPad, iPhone.
So our addictions are actually playing out in our genetics too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. How many, you do a lot with mobility, and what
Well, I do believe that mobility affects the expression of our inflammatory and immune system, and so that is a gene expression too, so that I'm hopefully priming the pump, or patients are priming the pump to resolve that and have a proper immune response. And so, I do see that correlation.
Yeah, because besides the diet and the other effects I mentioned, motion, exercise is the most powerful medicine on the planet for this effect. In other words, almost every degenerative disease that you and I can think of, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, are all made less severe if people regularly move. Any kind of movement is preferable to sitting still all day and lying on the couch.
I like to say we're all suffering from premature rigor mortis.
That's a good joke. I like that.
Okay, so here's the take home. Is epigenetics, everything we do affects our gene expression, and it can even affect our expression for generations. So think about that, and think about living intentionally, being present in the moment and what you're doing, and thoughtful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I like to say that your free will is to choose the environment you put yourself into.
That's right. So thanks for watching.
Thank you.